I wanted to do another video on Mozart and specifically about slurs and two-note slurs and phrasing and all these really important questions that don't seem to have clear answers. And I thought that we would start first by watching a little bit of this video that I found on YouTube of John Perry giving a master class. John Perry is a very distinguished and well-respected piano pedagogue. He's been teaching for many years. And he gave this master class on this Mozart Piano Sonata, Commercial 333. And I thought we would just watch a little bit of it together, and then we can kind of unpack a little bit of what he's saying.
And you must always remember what Mozart wrote. I do not write passages, I write melodies. There's no such thing as a string of notes that are just there. They all are melodic.
So when he talks about melodic, I guess he's talking about like notes that are meant to be sung or spoken. Is that kind of what he's getting at, you think?
I think so. I guess also he's also trying to say that each note is very important. Like none of it is just a decoration or a passing, just something passing by.
Right. Okay.
They're actually part of the main melody.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's listen.
The symphonic works. Do you know the 40th Symphony? Okay. One of the things we have too much of is this awful slur with the accent on the first note and staccato on the second note.
So before he does that, this idea of the awful slur with an accent on the first note and a staccato on the second note. I mean, I think that, as pianists, this is something that we're always taught, right? We're taught that, like in this early Mozart piece, those are all two-note slurs, right? And so we're taught to drop into the key. So I think it's natural that happens, right?
It is natural for us too, for string players as well.
Okay, so I think that's what he's talking about with this idea. Let's hear what he has to.
You ever? Have you ever heard that symphony? Okay, I want to remind you of something. This is a slur. This is a slur. This is a slur. And this is a slur. And this is a slur. And this is a slur. Now, how would pianists play that nowadays? This is the problem.
That's so unfair.
That's very funny.
I mean, pianists don't play that piece, but okay.
It's all beautiful. It's all melodic. When you right away, not. No. And Henley has a slur here. Mozart doesn't. They have a slur there too. Mozart doesn't. Only that one. So it's a long melody. Very often you have this section. You have it here. Same thing.
Ah, did you see that?
Yeah.
He's doing a violin bowing.
But you can never go legato to an Appoggiatura, though.
Oh my gosh! Okay, he's saying so much. Let's just look at this piece a little bit ourselves, right?
Sure.
So I'm gonna pull up the music. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So first, so Mr. Perry is saying that that there are too many slurs, right? That the slurs that are in the Henley edition don't exist in the manuscript. And so I pulled up this this copy from the Neue Mozart Ausgabe, which is the critical scholarly edition that you know, they've taken great care to indicate to us which slurs are Mozart's and which ones are editorial, right? So the ones that are dotted, so that would be, this is a dotted slur. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but this one here is dotted.
Yeah.
This one here is dotted. So those are editorial theoretically, and then these are from the manuscript. So this one is Mozart's. This one is apparently editorial. This one is Mozart's. Editorial, Mozart's. And then that last one is also Mozart's, right? I think Mr. Perry was saying that only the first one and the last one are Mozart's. So maybe he's seen a different manuscript of Mozart's, or I think that his argument that there are fewer slurs than the editors suggested is that if we only have to play a slur on this one and this one, then that absolves us of the responsibility of playing, right? Because we're always taught that a slur has emphasis in the first note,
right,
and a release on the second note. But if there was no slur there, then you would have the freedom to play.
Yes, exactly. For us string player, because we could also change. I mean, we could do a crescendo in the second note as well.
Right. And of course, this is the obvious
So
difference. Yeah. Another thing that he talked about was this idea of not slurring into an appoggiatura, right? Which is, so if this is the appoggiatura, the first one, right, in the first measure, he's saying that we shouldn't slur into it. So he's suggesting that there's a break in the sound. You know, I like this idea because he's not really saying this, but I'm guessing that he's saying that we want a long phrase. I think that that's the reason why he wants. Right. So if we put it all together in one long phrase, then it would sound. Does that sounds more or less like one phrase, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, now how would you play this as a violinist?
To make into one phrase, or to
maybe let's not do it all in one phrase first.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And there's so much that we can look at there.
Yeah.
Can you play just the first, just that part? Yeah. Okay. So you're changing the bow between, and then this is a new bow, right?
Yes.
And we can hear that in the sound. There's a slight break. But it's not.
No.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you bow that? The first part is up bow? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
The first four notes are one slur and up bow.
Okay.
And then down bow for the, and then another bow. So the reason why it was natural for me to do that was because usually if it's a pickup, we play with up bow because it has kind of like a natural feeling of up and then going down to the downbeat. So the pickup kind of have the direction of going, and the weight will land on the downbeat. And I had to separate this to B flat
Mm-hmm.
because it's harder for us to do the same note on the same bow. So it's very natural for me to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Because again, so like Mr. Perry is saying that if those notes are part of the same melody, that he wants to connect them. So obviously in the piano we have to lift up the key to play it back down again, and on the violin you're saying that it makes sense to change the bow there as well. But even when you do change the bow, it's not a short.
No, and I can even do something like
Okay.
I can connect the B flat a little bit more, even if I'm using different bow. So
right. So because this is an editorial slur, right?
Yeah.
If Mozart had not written the slur there, would it?
I don't know if you would play it differently.
Mm-hmm.
We would. I mean, obviously, we will be playing, but then we will probably also take in the liberty of putting a slur there, because this sounds like more choppy and
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
we will probably naturally slur too.
That's a really good point, right? So we have these rules and customs, and then we also have to temper those by considering the mood and the context of it, right? And nobody wants to hear something that's choppy. I mean, Mozart himself even, he complained in letters about people who played choppily. And so we know that he didn't like that. So that makes sense, right? Okay, so you would put a slur on that.
I would, yeah.
Can you demonstrate what that sounds like with the slur?
With the slur.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now I want to go back to this idea that he said, about. When he demonstrated these things, it sounded like the second note of the slur was actually louder than the first, and he didn't say specifically why, except that he didn't want it to sound like. Because that breaks up the line, I'm guessing, right? It sounds. I mean, if you play it like that, I mean, nobody would actually play it like that. But if you did play it like that,
about to say, yeah.
Right? I mean, nobody would actually do that. But
even if you're emphasizing the first note, you were probably emphasizing them a different way each time.
Right.
So it wouldn't sound like da da da, and then da again. Yeah.
Right.
It wouldn't be something like that.
That's right. But if you sang it, you would good with the left hand. No, the E flat's too soft. You can't have no. It's they don't even have the decency to put that in brackets. But Mozart didn't write those slurs except for the last one and the first one. This is a slur, but this isn't, and this is. Now, everybody thinks that Henley...
Okay. I feel so bad for the student. Because he did, just because you're tapering the end of the slur doesn't mean that you actually play.
Right.
I'm sure that that's not what he did, but what he's not saying, and what I think he means, is that he wants it to have one line. He wants this to all be one phrase, right? I mean, that would be the only rationale for playing. Now, I know you were saying before, violinists are able to crescendo in a note, or you're able to do hairpins, and we can't. So, I mean, one of the ways that we cheat on the piano is we actually have to play the beginning of the note louder. We can't crescendo in the middle of it. So then we end up with these sort of uncharacteristic slurs. And if we put that all together as one phrase, maybe it would sound something like this.
There's one thing that we really wish we could do that we can't though. Our bow is never long enough. If we want to make a long phrase, we have to break the bow. You know.
Right. Okay.
Even if we want it to be in one slur.
Okay. That's fair.
We have to break the bow, and we don't have a pedal to keep us going. So.
Can you show us what it would sound like if you played that all in one phrase? But obviously not in one bow, because you can't. But I mean, so observe all the slurs that Mozart wrote. But can you phrase it as one phrase, and so we can hear what that might sound like?
Sure.
Nice. Okay. Is that how you would naturally play that, you think?
I'm not sure.
Okay. What and why do you say that? I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think in romantic music, we talk about like these great big long phrases, and we talk about, really carrying things over the bar line, and
right.
And I think that some people would feel like it's not stylistic.
Yeah,
in some way to do that, right?
Yeah, it's the reason why I wouldn't naturally play that is because what I've learned about the style of the era of the piece of the composers, it's
right,
in a certain way that I would naturally go for that. If this was Brahms, it would probably sound very different.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that feels more like a Brahms sort of melody, right?
Okay. And then I mean, when you have a longer phrase, I think you would try to explore different sound, the richness of the sound within a phrase, which I think might be over the range of a Mozart sound that you would the kind of the delicacy is instead of the fat and richness of Brahms.
If we're talking about differences in style, right? I think that for Brahms, taking a melody and playing as one phrase, it's much more stylistic. How would that sound if we were trying to make that sound like Mozart in the way that we've been taught and shown, what Mozart typically is supposed to sound like? That's a really bad way of putting it, because it's not a matter of what it's supposed to sound. But when people think of classical phrasing, what would classical phrasing sound like? I think that people tend to. I think that when people talk about classical phrasing, they think of things being very tapered and elegant and symmetrical in some way, right? So. Feels very, symmetrical and elegant
proper,
and
structured.
Delicate. Right. Yeah. Structured. Exactly.
Yeah. I think also the harmonic progression it follows a certain rules, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly
So
right. No,
that kind of help us to know like how to phrase it in a way because it follows a principle,
right.
and we follow the principle when we think of how we will sing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we look at this harmonically, this is one harmony. This is the second harmony, right? Third harmony.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that we have to play. But if we think of those four chords together,
Yeah.
naturally they lead to the third
Yeah.
one, right? One,
Right.
2, 3, 4. And then if we phrase that, you know, while giving, if we phrase that and we think about the harmony, that wasn't very good. Let me try that again. Does that kind of sound like what you're talking about, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think the harmony, it just suggests a certain way of phrasing it.
Great. I want to look at the second movement real quick. Okay.
Oh.
So this is the second movement from the same sonata.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this passage in the 7th bar, which has a whole bunch of these appoggiaturas in it. It's such a problem for pianists, especially if you are thinking in this idea that two-note slurs have to be down, up, and that they're supposed to be stress, release, stress, release. I mean, they're so fast and there's so many of them, it just sounds kind of silly if we do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So I think that a lot of people end up just connecting them.
I see.
But I think that there's a way to honor both, right? I think that we can connect them, but still articulate them. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's what exactly I would do.
Can you show us what that would sound like on the violin?
Yeah, let me try.
Yeah. Tell me about the bowing for that. Are you changing bows? I mean, I guess I can see you, but it's so fast that I don't know for sure. I feel like my eyes are tricking me. How are you bowing that?
So I am slur all 6 notes.
Okay.
All of them are on up bow.
Yeah.
However, I am separate them a little bit within the bow.
Right. Okay.
It's kind
interesting.
of the way of complementing both, because you have like a larger arch that's going one direction, but there's a small section underneath it that enable you to hear all the notes and articulate it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love how you're able to play slurs and not change the bow direction between them, which allows them to sound like they're in one phrase, and they each will get louder or softer or however you're doing the phrase, but they have a relationship to each other as one group.
Instead of restart.
Right. So that definitely tells us that the first option is out. We don't have to do that, because we just heard that if a violinist were playing that, they wouldn't have to play it like that. So we shouldn't play it like that either. That doesn't sound stylistic. Is totally it's totally possible, and it's characteristic of the way that a string player might play it.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Let's look at another excerpt. The 570, right?
Yeah. This is very interesting. This is a very interesting marking.
Well, I think one of the reasons why there's the dotted slur over the 3 bars is because in the development section we have this melody. Well, let me play this melody first. That's the exposition. That's the beginning, right? When it comes in the development, when it's written in the development, it's actually written as one long slur.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
And then we don't actually have the manuscript for the first part. It was, our source for that right now is the first edition, and the way that the first edition was printed was with these slurs. So I think that some people have gone through and said, well, because in the manuscript it had a long slur over those 3 bars in the development, that in the exposition maybe that's what he also meant. So they've taken the liberty of adding that. But before we get into that, I just want to figure out what do those slurs actually mean. I think that most pianists, when they play this, they don't play. I think most pianists play this all together as one long slur. I'm wondering if there is a better way to do this. And I was really wondering what a string player would do if they played that. What would that sound like on the violin if you were observing the slurs in each bar? So slur, slur, slur. What would that sound like on a string instrument? They're both elegant and they both sound like one phrase.
One is significantly harder than the other, though.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I would never have guessed. Which one do you prefer?
I think I would prefer to separate.
Okay.
But actually, I might rewrite it if I didn't have any indications in the score. I might slur the first 2 measures and even slur those 3 notes or not. But
it's so interesting you say that, because some editors have actually written that.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Some editors have actually written that, and you didn't even know that. But okay,
no.
but that makes right. I mean, you're exactly right. Why and why? Do you have a reason why?
I think it's because I think of when I play the B flat, the first B flat, I remember it, and then when it comes back, I think of them as the same note. So the first 2 bars is just kind of embellishing that B flat, and then you go back to the same notes.
I see. Okay.
That's why
Right. And does that kind of help you to, well, you just said it. You said it helps to emphasize, to give a little bit of weight and stress to the B flat.
Right, and I guess it kind of helps me to organize how to shape these notes, like which one do I want to hear more, which note do I want people to remember in their ears.
I think that there's something very simple and childlike about this melody. It's like a nursery rhyme kind of, right? That and there's also this rocking motion.
Yeah.
I think we lose some of that if we play. It's not as interesting.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that, you know, I think that that further justifies your idea that it's nice to separate them into different slurs, because then we get to feel the lilting, rocking nursery rhyme feeling of that melody, right?
Yeah, I think it also kind of it's a choice of whether you want to make these three bars a theme, a actual melody,
Mm-hmm.
or just a statement of this is B flat major, they're one.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
if it's three slurs, you actually think of them as a melody. Different notes are important. But then
Okay.
if
Yeah.
you think of it, oh, this is a statement stating that this piece is in B flat major, this is the key signature of this piece, then you can you think of them as one. So then it makes more sense to slur it.
That's so interesting. I would never have thought about it that way. But yeah, if you do it all in one gesture,
Yeah, it's
it's
just a
almost like
B flat major chord kind of.
right, exactly. It's like, okay, well, this is just the introduction to the piece, and here it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Whereas if we actually give each
yeah,
one of those groups, a shape to it, then
yeah. Then it becomes the main theme of the
it
main
becomes a
melody
melody.
of yes, yeah,
Yeah.
of this whole movement.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is so great. Uh, I when I first learned this, I learned this piece when I was a kid, and naturally, the first thing that I did was I played, and my teacher was like, "Oh, you can't play that. Nobody would ever play it like that. Listen to recordings. Haven't you heard anyone play? Everybody connects them." And so, my next instinct was to completely ignore it. I was like, well, Mozart just did these old fashioned things, and nobody does those things anymore. And I mean, you listen to recordings we play on modern pianos. Of course, we should
Yeah.
just connect them.
Uh-huh.
But that's overly simplistic, and I think that it doesn't take into account, uh, that there's a middle ground where we can honor the articulations, and we can honor the shapes within that melody, while still connecting,
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
you demonstrated so beautifully for us. Thank you. I mean, if we had been friends when I was a kid,
You would have been great.
I would have played the piano so much better. I want to look at one more excerpt.
Sure.
Okay, this is the Mozart F major sonata, which has these problematic slurs.
But
How would you yeah.
sorry, the slurs in the left hand is different. How do you deal with that as a pianist?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I mean, I think most pianists just ignore it.
Oh,
Honestly.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of pianists will look at it and think, these, sometimes slurs are these artifacts of string bowings from the past, and that you know uh it's just a custom. It's the way that people would notate music, but it's not really relevant anymore. And then I think that people kind of just ignore. They just see, oh, it's a slur, it's legato, that's enough, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would do anything different for those. I think maybe subconsciously what I just did is I grouped them.
Uh-huh.
I grouped them as one phrase. It just helps me mentally, conceptualize, I guess, those different chords that are underneath them. But
Mhm.
how would you play that melody in the beginning?
Um, Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
I will actually separate this. Yeah.
I think I know why, but
Why?
I think you're separating this so that you can come up bow on this, so that you can have the down bow on the Appoggiatura, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's
Okay.
very unnatural to play that in the up bow.
Okay. Okay.
It's definitely doable. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not the most natural way, and we would sacrifice. I would sacrifice a slur from before for
Mm-hmm.
that down bow. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so definitely not.
Definitely not. No. Even when I was separating the bows, still
Yeah.
I try to connect them.
You connect them as much as you can. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
when we change the bow, there is a natural kind of push in a weight that it already gives you enough impulse that you need.
Right.
So most of the time, actually, so most of the time we actually try our best to avoid that because it's naturally there.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think that also helps to inform us of why we put a little bit of stress, a little bit of emphasis in the beginning of each slur as a pianist, is because, as you said, when you start moving the bow in that direction, that there's naturally a little bit of that emphasis that happens just from a mechanical standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So how would you play the next part? Very nice.
Well, I can do
No. I know you
can. Written too.
I know you
can.
can.
It doesn't really matter actually.
That's so good. Yeah. So let me try playing it for you, and I want you to tell me if you think that this is characteristic of how you just played it. I'm going to try to play this like you did, right? How'd I do?
Great.
Good answer. Was there anything that you thought that that you did differently?
I think so.
Okay, show me.
I think so. I mean, the biggest difference I think is that when I do those two notes, I actually grow into the next bar. Yeah.
I wish that I could do that.
I know.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Was that better?
Yeah.
Closer?
Closer, yeah.
It's really hard.
I know.
And one of the things that, and I think that this actually does go back to what John Perry was saying, is that because we can't crescendo within a long note, we have to sometimes break some of these rules and play a note louder than we might otherwise want to, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to make something sound like it's connected, like one phrase, a little bit, right? So again, like if I wasn't thinking about the long phrase, feels natural to me. But then if I want to think of this long phrase, right?
Definitely.
It's hard because there's so many little things going on the surface. But thank you so much for spending all this time and showing us all these things. there's so many questions that I've always wondered about, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to actually ask a string player, because it suddenly, I mean, we sit here as pianists, we practice, and then we're always alone, and we just imagine what this might sound like. We never really get a chance to hear it, and then you go to your teacher, and your teacher tells you, Mozart is very difficult, and everything you did is wrong, and then you don't want to do it anymore. And I'm so glad that you are showing us.
No,
I wish
thank
that we had been friends when I was a kid. I would have learned so much. This is so great.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. This was really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'd love to.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.